Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Resilient Karatan, I'd like to welcome you to tonight's event. The objective of this meeting is for you to find out more about the candidates in terms of what they stand for, what their experience is, so that you have an opportunity to go away and make a more informed decision. The candidates, in order of their proximity to me, are Greg Lang, Jill Greathead, and Graham Farr. We also have Bernard Bottrell, who is also a candidate but is not attending this evening, but he has submitted some videos which we will play at the appropriate times during the evening. In terms of housekeeping, you've all passed the toilets on your way in. They're in the foyer. In terms of if there's an emergency, each of the walls has an emergency exit. Go and find one, and then we'll congregate in the car park near the school. In terms of etiquette, in terms of the audience, we're going to ask that there are no interruptions or interdictions from you. There is a way you can interact with the candidates, and there are people on the walls if you want to give us a little wave, and there will be someone over there as well, down the back who have bits of paper and pens, and if you'd like to submit a question, we'd love you to do that. You're also welcome to go and find and chat to the candidates after the meeting as well. They're going to make themselves available. In terms of timekeeping that we're going to expect from the candidates, it's very strict. So most of the responses they have is 2 minutes, and they are going to get a signal at 1:30, 1 minute, and then 2 minutes is gone. Because the event is being televised, we have to stick really carefully to the times. That's one of the reasons that we're asking that there are no interruptions from you. The candidates have 2 minutes. If people start talking over them, they're not going to get through the things that they want to say and that people actually want to hear. In terms of a general overview for the evening, the candidates are going to introduce themselves and have an opportunity to do that. There are 3 questions that they have been given an opportunity to think about and respond to, and we're going to go through those. Moving on from there, we'll move into the questions, hopefully from the audience, and give the candidates an opportunity to respond to anything that you would like to follow up on from what they've said, or any other issues that are relevant to you that aren't addressed earlier in the evening. The candidates will be then given a short time to sum up, and that hopefully will bring us into 9 o'clock. So hopefully looking forward to an informative and fun evening. I'd now like to introduce Graham Farr for his 2-minute opening statement. Graham, you have the option of, there's a handheld mic, which is somewhere. Or you can use the lectern. Choice is yours.
2 minutes on a tunnel. That's fairly fast. It's actually also the time it takes to drive through the tunnel, because it's about 2 kilometres long, and I've got 3 things I'd probably like to get across in my 2 minutes. Number 1 is that the tunnel is much shorter and much easier than you imagine. Here's a 1963 plan of the tunnel done by the Ministry of Works, because they still had the 40-mile limit on road transport to protect the railways. And you can see the tunnel is the little dotted thing there. It goes up a different valley to where you imagine, not up the valley from the Kaitoki that you drive up, but to a much easier valley to the north, which is up there. And the tunnel itself is, as you can see, the middle bit there, the 2 kilometres, and the deviation that you go from what's the Aston Norwood Cafe, the old Kaitoki Gardens, I think it was, to the Twin Bridges is 9 kilometres. So it's a hell of a lot faster than the Hill Road, which is 14 kilometres, and it's about 10 to 15 minutes faster. There's the route shown there, as well as above there's a dotted route, and below is the blue line there is the Summit Tunnel, which is people talk about, but that's just to protect the Hill Road from being closed by snow in the winter. There's a bit there about traffic and the growth of traffic recently. 7,000 cars a day, 437 trucks. And price-wise, you've got 3 options really. A luxury twin tunnel, which is probably about 600 million, but you could have something like the Littleton Tunnel, which would, if that was built today, that would cost $90 million. So,
here's our 2 minutes, goes quickly. All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I would now like to invite Greg to give his opening address.
Tēnā koutou, ko Greg Lang aho. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming out tonight. It's really, really great to see you here. And I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow candidates, Jill Greathead and Graham Farr, and Bernard Bottrell, who's going to be available by video. And also thank you, Resilient Cardinal. It's fantastic that you've given us mayoral candidates an opportunity. I'm going to get straight to the point. I have a hunger to be the next mayor, and that hunger is fierce. I see so much potential that's basically at the end of our fingertips. Potential that could slip away if we don't act and make the most of it and harness it. And it's potential that could add so much value to the essence of our community. And we need to harness that potential to create a point of difference, because we need a point of difference. And in doing so, it'll become so much easier to address the affordability of our town, the CBD rejuvenation, the resilience of our community, the climate change, and our growing urban-rural divide. So with over 20 years of leading community initiatives and making things happen, I'm ready and primed to take the lead of our district by creating a cohesive, proactive team that will make our district more affordable, resilient, and a place where enterprise and talent can thrive. Thank you.
And our final opening statement. Jill.
Kia ora, everyone. This is my 7th election, and it's been like no other. You, the people of Carterton, have told us what you want. You've encouraged 23 candidates to stand. You have attended meetings and engaged in discussion and debate. This type of engagement does not happen without enormous effort and passion. And you now have the ability to democratically choose those who will represent you, lead and serve us for the next 3 years to strengthen Carterton's future in this changing and uncertain world. As your mayor, I will focus on what you say you need, not what I think you need. Mayors and councillors must engage with all of you so that together we can revitalise community democracy. As your representative, I will take your combined voice to our central and regional governments to make sure they understand our views and our needs. As a councillor, I have always advocated this approach, but as mayor, my mandate will be stronger. I am sure you will agree that for a long time, top-down power has made many of us feel powerless. Now it's time for bottom-up empowerment of locals to influence decisions and encourage all of us to care for each other and care for our environment. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope voting for me so that I can devote my time to serving the community as Mayor.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to the candidates responding to the first prepared question. So these are questions that they were given in advance and had an opportunity to create a prepared response to. The order of responses has been randomly assigned, and so we might stop for the videos to be played at different times as well. But our first question is, what do you think is the role of Mayor? And I'd like to invite Jill back to address that first. Sorry, in the middle of your sip.
I believe the mayoral role is about leadership. That is, leading the council and the people of Kātāta with the community's shared vision. Leadership means ensuring fair, evidence-based discussion leading to sound decisions about the council's plans, policies and budgets. Team building means utilising each member's unique skills, experience and passions to form a strong and united council. The Mayor must ensure factions that skew council behaviour do not develop. Councils have two teams, the elected council team, led by the Mayor, and the management team, led by the CEO. The Mayor must ensure a proper relationship between council as policymaker and interpreter of community wishes, and the executives who manage and carry out activities decided by the council, recognising their need to sometimes just get things done. It is vital that the Mayor and CEO work well together to deliver the community's shared vision. I believe in leadership coming from the heart as well as the head. Compassionate leadership which is inclusive, ethical and empowering. An inclusive Mayor acknowledges that everyone who is elected by the community has an important and unique role to play. An ethical Mayor ensures that all decisions are made by consensus following robust discussion based on sound evidence and input from the community. An empowering Mayor is compassionate and ensures council and community are connected with everyone valued and able to contribute.
Thank you, Jill. We're now going to cut to a video. So this is Bernard Bottrell responding to the question, what do you think is the role of Mayor?
Good evening, Kātāta, Art of the Wairarapa. I am Bernard Bottrell. I am going to be your Wrath Mayor. The main role of your Wrath Mayor will be to lead a council which will be tasked with seeking economies without reducing services, so that rates might be reduced because rates are too high. Your Wrath Mayor and Council will be implementing policies to make sure that new houses are more independent. Specifically, each new house will be required to retain 10,000 litres of water. When their water tanks get down to 500 litres, council water will flow. This has a dual benefit, because not only does it relieve strain on the council supply, It also provides a buffer during cloudburst when the stormwater will not flow into the stormwater system. Your Rath Mayor and Council will be publishing the minutes of each council meeting. You, the ratepayer, will know who said what, who voted for what, and who voted against it. The only instance where you will not be given information is when it compromises people's private information. The social and fun part of being mayor will always be subordinate to the work of being mayor.
I'd now like to invite Greg to share his thoughts on the role of mayor.
Thank you. The role of the mayor, well, to me it's simple. It's leadership, leadership and leadership. A mayor needs to have a vision and the ability to turn that vision into a success story. And to do this, a mayor needs the following attributes. He needs to be honest and show unquestionable integrity. A mayor needs to be positive and to be able to inspire. It's essential a mayor shows commitment and passion, and also has to be a good communicator. And a mayor needs the ability to listen and make the right decision at the right time and stand by it. And a mayor also needs to be totally accountable. And because the mayor's a leader, he needs to display confidence and be creative and able to innovate and to be able to delegate and empower. And none of this will work unless a mayor shows empathy. So a mayor with a vision and those characteristics will ensure that Carterton District will have a governance team able to meet the current and future needs of the community. That's the role of a mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Graham, to address the role of mayor.
This is my 8th Meet the Candidates meeting I've been to, and although the Marston one was like Meet the Other Candidates, because there were about a quarter of what there is here tonight, and I've become famous for bending all questions around to tunnels, and this one's not hard. I think a mayor is responsible for a resilient infrastructure. For example, a tunnel would, you've got a hill road that you drive over, which in a major earthquake, I was reading today, is 120 days. At a 7.5 earthquake, that's less than the Kaikoura one. They say it'll be 120 days before it'll be open, is a wild guess. I think it'll be more like a year, because if you have aftershocks, you'll have continual rocks falling down. It won't even be safe to try and clear it for probably 3 months. A tunnel, if you want to compare the Littleton Tunnel, it opened, I think, after the main Christchurch earthquake in February 2011. It was open the next day. And the Hill Road, which is very equivalent to what you have here, the Sumner to Littleton Hill Road, opened in March this year. So that's like 8 years, you know. The tunnel also is not, you'd imagine there's a fault line there. The fault line actually runs through the road, but it doesn't run through the tunnel. So it's actually even safer than it looks. Tunnels don't generally get damaged by earthquakes, and I think it's absolutely vital to have something like that, just for safety as well as businesses, the vineyards, everything like that. If no one comes to visit here, nothing happens. So, thanks a lot.
I'm finding myself far more interested in tunnels than I thought I was. No, you've got a few more chances. We're moving on to our second prepared question of the evening, which is, what special qualities or special character will you bring to the role of mayor? and I'd like to invite Greg to speak on that first.
Right, I've been looking forward to this one. So what special qualities or character do you bring to the role of Mayor? Well, I bring inclusiveness and sheer determination to achieve what's the best for our community. And that's my strength. For everything I do, I strive to get the most out of opportunities for others by listening, understanding strengths and weaknesses, and creating a proactive, cohesive team to make things happen. I inspire. Ellie and I built a large scarecrow in front of the wheelwright shop. We sold the vision, and 1 month later, there were 250 scarecrows scattered amongst the Gladstone district. And some 21 years later, some of those young scarecrow makers are now mums at the school, and they're planning this year's Scarecrow's Big Day Out, which, by the way, is November the 16th, and well worth going to. And I always encourage robust debate, and once a decision is made, I'll back it 100%. But I join the dots, because that's how you make things happen. So whether it's been asked to go back into Go Cardigan's business group and reinvigorate it, or establishing Heart of Arts Gallery, or developing Cardigan District Council's 4 advisory groups, the economic development, placemaking, cycling and walking, or arts, culture and heritage. So I have the skills to make a vision happen. And aside from the work that I'm putting into my mayoralty campaign, I'm also driving the establishment of an off-road cycling and walking trail linking the 5 Wairarapa towns. Massive job, or as a little ad on TV said, pretty big job. Yes, but I'll make it happen and I'll guarantee that. So as a role of mayor, I bring honesty and integrity, confidence, inspiration, commitment and passion, good communication, decision-making, accountability, the ability to delegate and empower, creativity and innovation, and empathy, which I believe is the most important skill of a leader. So Greg Lang for Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I'd now like to invite Graham back to address the question, what special qualities or special character would you bring to the role of Mayor?
I think I'll just ignore it. It's probably easy. They eventually stopped me in Greytown. I wouldn't let me answer any questions. The one thing I'd like to think is the quality of saving money. And I understand that the Cardigan seems to have a rates problem at the moment, seem to be quite high. At the moment you're faced with 2 transport options. The Regional Council have basically approved the seeking of money of $415 million to upgrade the rolling stock and the network, and another $100 million is being spent on that as well by Kiwi Rail. So that's $500 million being spent. There'll be part of that, at least 60% will be 60% may be paid by the government, but 40% will be raised by rates. So Regional Council, I think, did signal a 15% rates rise. And so, but they, so the split, the trains are being bought for Manawatu and Wairarapa, and the split is more in the Wairarapa because there's a lot more track work required. So it's about $300 million being spent here on trains. For that, you could get a tunnel, but the big difference of a tunnel is the tunnel is part of the state highway network, and it's paid for by the government 100%. So at the moment, you look, they want to spend money on a train, which will probably add 1,000 people to it at $300,000 each. 1,000 commuters. At the moment, there's about 1,000 use the Wairarapa line commuting to Wellington in the morning. And in so to add on another 1,000 costs about 300,000 each. And a tunnel will cost nothing at all. So that was my little plug. Thanks.
Thank you, Graham. I'd now like to invite Jill to address the question, what special qualities or special character will you bring to the role of Mayor?
I am a grassroots person instilled with community values from my childhood in Greytown. At 19, I travelled to the UK, which led to a career in the information technology sector for the next 15 years. I then moved back home to raise my family, and then I joined council 18 years ago, where I've gained many experiences and have seen many changes. My current concern is the amount of regulation that central government has imposed on our communities and our citizens. In 2014, central government policy was to create super councils. So when the Wellington Super City was proposed, we created Carterton Voice. Thankfully, the proposal failed. Our next directive from central government was the Wairarapa amalgamation proposal. Carterton Voice turned into Wairarapa Voice, and we successfully defeated the final proposal in December 2015. With these experiences in leadership, I became interested in different models of local democracy around the world. This has given me hope that bottom-up power is a way that we can encourage our citizens to make the change we need to make as a planet. I feel my qualities are that I have energy, common sense, business acumen, evidence of community understanding and involvement, and a passion for democracy.
Thank you, Jill. And finally, we are going to return to the screen for Bernard's response to the question.
Good evening, Carterton, Heart of the Wairarapa. I am Bernard Bottrell. I am going to be your Rath Mayor. The main role of your Rath Mayor will be to lead a council which will be tasked with seeking economies without reducing services, so that rates might be reduced because rates are too high. Your Rath Mayor and council will be implementing policies to make sure that new houses are more independent. Specifically, each new house will be required to retain 10,000 litres of water. When their water tanks get down to 500 litres, council water will flow. This has a dual benefit, because not only does it relieve strain on the council supply, it also provides a buffer during cloudburst when the stormwater will not flow into the stormwater system. Your Rath Mayor and Council will be publishing the minutes of each council meeting. You,
Slight
the
technical
ratepayer,
hiccup.
will
This is the first one. We're just going to stop it and replay the second one.
Good evening, Carterton, Heart of the Wairarapa. I am Bernard Bottrell.
We're going to move on, and if we can come back to it, we will. We're going to move on to the third question, which is, paint us a picture. What is your vision, and what do you want for Kāreton? And I'd like to invite Jill to respond first to this, please.
My picture is one of a friendly, happy and safe community where people have access to services they require at a cost they can afford. Where our water is pure, our rivers run clean, our stormwater drains away, there are no potholes on our roads and footpaths, and there is no crime in our town. And where there is sustainable development and growth, so that our identity is not compromised by progress. That our event centre is vibrant with events, and that our council listens and represents the views of our community, and that we are trusted, accountable and transparent. That we have a community spirit based on values, where people are kind to each other, and where they help each other, and where they belong to the sports hub or one of our many community groups. And that we have different generations who enjoy being together. And that no one will feel lonely in this compassionate community called Kāreton, because we will all feel valued and connected. And when life's hardships hit, there will be help and support for us. And finally, that we are a bottom-up, local democracy where all people vote and all people know they have a voice.
Thank you, Jill. We're going to try and return to Bernard's video.
Will be tasked with seeking economies without reducing services. Kāreton, part of the Wairarapa. I am Bernard Bottrell. I am going to be your part of the Wairarapa. I am Bernard Bottrell.
Okay, let's go back to our third question, but I'm going to invite Graham to speak again, so I won't bother pigeonholing you with your question. I'll just invite you back for your 2 minutes.
You've got me talking about tunnels and Bernard talking about tanks. We both seem like a stuck record, don't we? A couple of quick facts, tunnelly facts. In New Zealand, we seem to have lost the ability to do major projects. I don't know why. This has been talked about for years. It's been sort of booted around the place as a political football, and other things have been taken its place, and it's been overpriced vastly, as far as I could see, in order to make another project work for political reasons. But in Norway, is an interesting comparison. Norway's about the same size as New Zealand, about 5.5 million people. They've got 1,000 road tunnels, and they've got 150 tunnels that are longer than what would be needed at the Rangatahi. So, and other things, it's people. One of the reasons in 2008 it was knocked back when Helen Clark was looking at doing the Waterview tunnel up in Auckland and wanted money for there because it went through her electorate. So you lost out, and it should have been a $300 million cost. It was priced at $800 million. And one of the things they said, it was a massive amount of earthworks. And I've just done the calcs. There's 154,000 cubic metres of earthworks, and I worked out that's 2% of Transmission Gully. So, and a mate of mine's one of the engineers there, and he said that would take us a week. So the earthworks are quite tiny, the tunnel's quite short, and my reason for standing and trying to get some attention to this is just let's have a look at the numbers and let's get a proper assessment done on it and see if it's something we want or not. So, cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Graham. Greg, I'd like to invite you to address the question, what is your vision and what do you want for Kāreton?
Right. So paint us a picture. What is your vision? What do you want for Kāreton? Well, I'd like to paint a picture. In fact, I'd like you to imagine a picture. So imagine. Imagine a town centre that has the feel of your lounge at home. Buildings that are set back from the road, full of green spaces and shared courtyards. A place to hang out and meet during the day, after school and at night. Eateries, artisans, specialised retail, co-sharing the lounge and telling the Wairarapa food story. Enriched with our arts, culture and heritage stories. I mentioned earlier potential. Well, there's that potential and it needs to be harnessed. No one would question that our CBD needs work. And thanks to earthquake-prone building legislation, July 2021 is D-Day. This is the only time in our foreseeable future we're going to have an opportunity to shape our heart. We're already being touted as the place to tell the Wairarapa food story. And our arts, culture and heritage stories are just beckoning to be told. So we also need to reach out to our rural community and say thank you. Thank you for the work that you are already doing to protect the environment and the economic contribution you make. And invite them to be part of the food story and showcase how our town and country can lead urban and rural sustainability. It's a pretty big job, yes, for one person, but for a team, no. And that's my picture. Now, talking of pictures, Mike's got to put a picture up maybe, yep. Anyway, in 2016, I competed in my first Ironman. It's a 3.8k swim, a 180k bike and a 42k run. 2020 will see me competing in my fourth New Zealand Ironman. The same dedication, motivation and determination to get to the start line of an Ironman I'm going to bring to the role of mayor. So I've done the training and I'm peaked to execute. Strong, decisive leadership, encouraging robust debate amongst a proactive and cohesive governance team. I'm keen and I want to make things happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Now, if we are lucky, we're going to go to Mr. Bottrell's third and final video. If not, his vision might just be about water tanks. We'll see.
Is often called the heart of the Wairarapa. At present, it's a heart in arrhythmia. Businesses closed by council red stickers. Businesses closed because they can't afford the exorbitant water bills. And ratepayers who don't know where the next rate payment is coming from, but knowing well that Kāreton District Council will hurt them if they don't pay on time. So other things are neglected in order to pay rates. All of this goes on while we debate whether or not to spend huge sums on rainbow paint jobs or how much further the cycleway should go. This is all squander think. It's bright, it's shiny, and I've got to have it now. I can't afford it, but somebody else will pay the bill. That somebody else is we ratepayers. We can't make rates go away, but we can use rates with respect for those who provide them. I am keen on enthusiasts making cycleways, but I'm not enthusiastic about paying thousands of dollars a metre for the council to build cycleways. My vision for Carterton is a community that has good roads, reticulation, rubbish collection, and enough spare money to feel that they are living well. Rates are too high. The Wrath Alliance intends to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. Now that brings us to the end of the sort of prepared part of the evening. We're now going to look at some questions up on the PowerPoint, give you a chance to think about what the answers might be. I'll read you the answers. The reason we're doing that is to give you some time to collect your thoughts so that if you have a question that you would like to write down and have presented to the candidates, you have time to do that now. We have our first question, which has been supplied, and I'm going to read that now to give you guys a chance to think about the first question before we come to it. So the first question that has come from the floor for the candidates is, should Carterton declare a climate emergency to express reality and bring due focus? In terms of the order that I'll ask you to address questions in, we'll start, Greg, Jill, go along, and the next time we'll start with Jill and we'll just keep alternating. For the questions from the floor, the time is limited to 1 minute, and you don't have to address them if you don't want to. Have we got our PowerPoint up for that? Pop quiz, yeah. So this was prepared by Resilient Carterton to give you the time to come up with the questions if you'd like to, so we'll quickly run through some of these answers. How many people are standing for Mayor? The answer was 4. Okay, we found it? The answer was 4. The next question that you might see behind me on the screen is, what is the most common word used to describe Carterton? According to a recent community pulse survey run by Resilient Carterton, by a huge margin, the word used most often to describe Carterton was friendly. How many elected members are there in Carterton? 1 mayor and 8 councillors. How often is a 10-year plan prepared? A 10-year plan looks forward 10 years and is reviewed every 3. What voting system is used in Carterton? Carterton District Council uses first past the post. Greater Wellington Regional Council and the District Health Board use single transferable vote, and MMP is used in national elections. How many ratepayers are there in Carterton? There are about 5,100 rating units in Carterton. Just over half, 52% are urban, 43% are rural, and 5% are commercial. What percentage of households have a week's supply of emergency water? According to a recent community pulse survey run by Resilient Carterton, only 40% of respondents said they had enough water to set aside for an emergency. 1 week's emergency supply is 20 litres per person. Are we ready to move on to the prepared questions? Happy with that? We'll do one more. What is a targeted rate? A targeted rate, a rate charged for a particular service, e.g. rubbish collection, and only those who receive the service are charged for it. Right, I think we might go on to some of the questions from you. So the first question we had was, should Kāretin declare a climate emergency to express reality and bring due focus? Greg, you can just stay there if you'd like to come up.
Short answer, no. I believe to declare an emergency is the last tool in the toolbox. But I believe Council has an important role to play with climate change, and it's very important that when we make decisions at Council, we know its effect on climate change. But no to declaring a climate change emergency.
Thank you, Greg. Jill?
Can you hear me? Oh yes, that's great. Cool. I agree. No, I would prefer words like climate action or environmental kindness. Words like emergency and crisis are very negative and they reduce the hope that we have for our future. And I really believe that if we can live our lives by being kind to our environment, then we will overcome many of the environmental issues that we've created in the past.
Thank you. And Graham?
Yeah, how can I bend this round? There's one little thing here that if you built a tunnel instead of a road, you would save 15 tonnes less CO2 every day for cars driving over the road. And that's because they save 40,000 kilometres a day, and that's right around the world. So it's an astonishing amount of time wasted when you add it all up, and it's part of that inefficiencies that cause things like what we're looking at now. So, yeah, thank you.
Jill, we'll start with you on this question. We've had over 25 questions submitted, so hopefully we'll get through a few of them. Being a mayor is a full-time job. All of you are busy people. What are you doing now, employment and volunteer-wise, that you are prepared to give up? And what do you want to continue doing if you become mayor?
Okay, it's a complex question. Currently, I am the manager of volunteering Wairarapa, so clearly I would have to resign from that position if I became the mayor. I also run a small technology business, and thankfully my partner is now retired, so I'm training him up to do a lot of that work. And what I would like to do as mayor, I'm not sure, I imagine what I would like to do is continue the work that I'm doing with the Rangatira catchment plan project team, with my interest in waste reduction and also in climate change.
Thank you, Jill. Graham?
They're not taking me seriously anymore. My job is a tunnel campaigner. I'm actually, so it wouldn't really change, would it? I honestly don't expect to be mayor. I'm standing for all three councils, mainly to promote this thing. I'm not even expecting a lot of votes, but what I have noticed is that you've got some really good candidates here, so you won't be left high and dry.
Thank you. And Greg, remember the question was, being mayor is a full-time job. All of you are busy people. What are you doing now, employment and volunteer-wise, that you're prepared to give up? And what do you want to continue doing if you become mayor?
Yeah, is this one working? Can you? Yep. Yeah, it is a full-time job, and I realise that. I do run the wheelwright shop with my wife Ali, and we're wheelwrights and carriage builders. But over the last few months, we've been finishing off the carriage building side of things, and we've decided that if I become mayor, I'll only do wooden wheels. And what I'll be saying to customers, yes, I can do your wheel, but it'll be when I can fit it in. The other thing that takes a lot of my time, or in the early hours, is training for an Ironman. But I think I'll need to be doing that for my sanity. So I train with my mate John down here. We're running up the Admiral at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I still want to keep doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a question specifically for Jill. You've been on council for 18 years. Why haven't you been able to effect the change you want already? What new approach are you offering?
Okay, so I guess things in life take time. The new approach that I would like to effect is the whole thing about bottom-up democracy. I think now it's the right time. Local Government New Zealand have got a project called Localism NZ, which is all about putting communities in charge. So I think it's really a matter of it's the right time. Yes, I've had 18 years on council. I've seen that maybe the old ways are working less and less well than they've ever done before. So yes, it's time for a change.
Graham, we'll come to you first on this one. This is a question for all candidates, though. Do you believe our current astronomical rates are affordable? And what do you propose to do about rates increases?
Well, apart from my comment about the train and any expenditure on that you're going to pay some of, that's probably the only thing in my little tiny world that might affect rates. I don't really have any other comments, sorry.
Greg?
Yeah, now, well, rates, yes, they are high and they're affordable to some, but not to others. And there's two things that I really want to push, and one is collaboration with the other councils. There's huge money to be saved through efficiencies, through collaborating and sharing. And that starts with governance. And I've already talked to the to the candidates who are standing for the mayoralty and the other districts about working together closely and getting a governance structure that enables that. And the other one is a rate review. We've got a rate review starting the end of this year. It's going to be an 18-month process, and we're going to draw right down so we understand everything about our district and how we can spread that load more evenly. And then the other thing too, which I touched on before, is investment in the town. If we're going to have an investment in the town, we're going to have more jobs, higher paying jobs, and greater productivity and more affordability. But so greater collaboration with the other councils, rate review, dig deep, and really push enterprise and talent to thrive.
Thank you, Greg. I'd ask Jill to respond to that same question, which was, do you believe that our current astronomical rates are affordable, and what do you propose to do to control rates increases?
So yes, for some people on low and fixed incomes, rates are becoming unaffordable. People are getting worried about being able to continue to live in Carterton. My feeling is that we should be looking at our costs and open our budgets so we know exactly what is actually happening. Greg is right in terms of shared services, but in actual fact I was part of the shared services working group for 2 trienniums, that's pretty much 6 years. There wasn't a lot that we could cut back, but I agree we should be working closer. I don't believe a rates review will cut costs. They will certainly spread the load somewhere, but at the end of the day, someone has to pay. And I do believe we should be looking at our current staff structure, because staff costs are directly related to rates.
Thank you. This is a question for Greg and Jill. And Greg will come to you first on it. What projects would you like to see completed during your term as mayor, and how would they be funded?
Projects. Well, I'd love to see the CBD redevelopment done, and that won't be funded by council. We'll be there, I'll be there as mayor, talking to businesses, developers, joining the dots and making it happen. 2021, our town will look like it's had an earthquake if we don't get stuck in, because the buildings will be red stickered. So that's really important. And the other project I'd like to see done is the 5-town cycles trail. The economic benefit, the social benefits are massive, and that's not council funding that. We're doing a little bit of seed funding at the moment, because we've got to have a bit of skin in the game, but the development of the trails won't be funded by council. That will be funded by the PGF and other projects, and sort of partnerships with communities in different parts of it. So that's 2 projects that I would love to see.
Thank you, and Jill.
So I'm for getting back to basics, particularly with the rates increases that we've had. I believe that we should finish off our wastewater project and get that done and dusted before we take on any more capital projects. I would, however, like to introduce bottom-up power, i.e. local democracy. I believe that will increase our engagement, and we can use techniques like creative forest that was used last month in the event centre for a way of really engaging with our people. I don't expect that to cost the community much at all.
Thank you. This is a question for Jill and Greg. It looks like it's designed to dig into your leadership style a little bit. Jill, we'll come to you first. As Mayor, if you disagree with the councillor's decision, how will you react?
So I'm assuming you're saying that I'm a mayor and there is 5 votes for a decision that I am not happy with.
Yeah.
Yep. We do live in a democracy, and a democracy is over 50% wins. I would like to have maybe made sure that we did our decision making in this next triennium in the way we used to. We used to do it by consensus. We very, very rarely had any dissent on any decisions, and I believe that what we did was we fully discussed issues, we debated issues and had full information until we were actually ready to take the vote.
Thank you. And Greg?
With my leadership style, I make sure everyone has a say, and that's where empathy comes in. You can't let someone in a group not get wins or successes. You've got to talk to them, you've got to work with them, and the group's got to share and work together. So in the decision-making process, you can't always have 100% all agreeing, but what you need is that team to realise, okay, I didn't get my way this time, but I really want to do this over here, but I'm going to back that decision. We can't have decisions made and someone going out in the public and not agreeing. So it's very important to work as a team, and that's my essence, is getting teams cohesive and working together.
Thank you. Just to break things up a bit, Graham, we have a question for you. I have only heard you speak about the tunnel. Would you please tell us what skills and history you have, and how that would enable you to be our mayor? Also, what would you like to tell us about what you would like to change?
Yeah, that sort of exposes me for hijacking the whole system, doesn't it, really? So, yeah, no, I don't. There's a guy who stands for president every year in the United States, and every election in the United States, and his policy is everyone gets a pony, and he's called, that's a crazy name anyway, Vermin something. So I suppose I'm more on that end than the serious candidate end, but so I honestly don't expect to become in this position, so I don't think I need to answer that.
We'll go back to Jill and Greg, and we'll start with Greg. What was your position on amalgamation, and why, and what do you believe needs to be done in the future?
Okay. I was one of the few people that actually stood up and said what I thought. I was for amalgamation because I believe a valley with 45,000 people sharing the same resources and like-minded communities should be governed by one group. That doesn't mean you can't still have leadership in the towns, but it's just there's so many inefficiencies because we're doing everything 3 times. And that's, as mayor, that's where I want to work with the governance side and get us sharing a lot more. I mean, we're hamstrung in Cardigan, with our size. The reason the rates in town were so high, it was a targeted rate for the wastewater treatment plant, and we've got a very, very low rating base. And the survey from the Ratepayers Union that said that we had the third highest rates in average residential rates in New Zealand also said that Cardigan District Council has the lowest operating costs per household in New Zealand. So we're hamstrung by our size.
Thank you. And Jill, the question was, what was your position on amalgamation and why, and what do you believe needs to be done in the future?
Yep, I was against amalgamation. I was part of the Wairapa Voice team that campaigned against it. There were lots and lots of reasons why not. Number one, the proposal was not robust. It wouldn't have cost us anything. It ended up being unfair in terms of debt. So the proposal just wasn't the right proposal. What should we do in the future? I do believe that we should be looking at a unitary authority, which basically means that we would do any regional stuff we could do obviously as a region, and then any stuff that really was very much local, we would be doing as a local community. And I would see that there would be 5 communities in the Wairarapa, as in South Wairarapa with their 3 communities, obviously Carterton and Masterton. The issue at the end of the day is that, as Greg mentioned, the wastewater treatment, it is local, but the idea is that where would we get more money from? Would we expect Masterton people to be subsidising that if we were one authority? So there's a whole lot of things that one has to think about. It's not easy, but at the end of the day, a larger authority, a council, takes away community democracy.
Thank you. This is again for Jill and Greg, and Jill will come to you first. Will the minutes be published, including who voted for and against by name? Also, will public be invited, able to attend meetings?
I guess you're saying if Mayor.
Yes.
Yep, sure. Meetings are actually published. They are actually on a website, although you have to know where to go, and you actually have to wade through often 200 pages to get to various previous minutes, which may or may not have, or which will have, obviously, who voted for something. Only if it only actually puts it in if you actually ask to be named as voted against it. I believe in total transparency and accountability. I would love a register which actually recorded all, obviously, decisions from different people. And I actually a believer that we have public excluded meetings, and I believe that they should actually come into the public once they are no longer sensitive in terms of why they're public excluded.
Thank you, Anne. Greg, can you share your thoughts around transparency?
Yeah, yes and yes.
Mr. Farr, we've got another question for you. Might struggle to read this. You've been called the tunnel man in the question. How does Mr. Farr respond to, in the morning, to the Dominion pointing out, there must be an article maybe, that a tunnel will wreck the Wairarapa way of life, and is it wanted? So there must have been in this morning a Dominion article pointing out that a tunnel will wreck the Wairarapa way of life.
It was a Carl Dufresne article, and he said that he was voting against it, but he thought his wife had voted for it. But I was talking about that with someone else who lives in, got a place in Martinborough today, and there is that aspect that the place is kind of special because there's not so many people here. But having said that, if a tunnel was built in the next, say, 3 years, it would probably take, before the changes that you might, not like, the people and the number of people and that sort of thing and the extra businesses, it would probably take 10 to 20 years to actually kick in. So people around these days will get the benefits of the tunnel without probably having the disadvantages of the busy area that they don't like. So.
Jill, this is a question specifically for you. Jill, you say back to the basics does not mean any reduction in services, as stated at a previous event. So what does back to the basics actually mean?
Well, there's 2 types of decisions we make. We make decisions about things that are essential, so therefore we must have roading, we must have wastewater, we must have rubbish disposal, but we do make a lot of decisions about what I call nice-to-haves. So those are more this kind of stuff, I'm sorry, that Greg's involved with, some of the placemaking type things, cycle trails and feasibility reports on things like cycle trails and at Gladstone. So my feeling is I did vote against some of those nice-to-haves, and that was cutting, getting back to basics.
Thank you. This is to Greg and Jill. You're not actually excluded, Graham, but it might be outside of your area that you'd like to talk about. What are the candidates' views on the state of our third world pavements? I'm not sure a tunnel will solve that problem, but Greg, if you'd like to start us off on that.
Yes, no, footpaths are always coming to, or always getting telephone calls about it, and I always go and have a look. There is a program to upgrade footpaths, and that funding is actually increased. But when I talk to a lot of residents, I say, well, we could spend more money on footpaths, but the first thing they say is don't put rates up. But there are a lot of things that need to be done to footpaths, and we prioritise them. And it's a network that through the Cycling and Walking Advisory Group we're reviewing.
Thank you. And Jill?
Yeah, footpaths are obviously always an issue because actually we see them as people walking around the streets. I was actually a street inspector, my first job in London when I was 19 years old, so I know quite a bit about footpaths. Unfortunately, they are expensive, and the thing is that can we as a small community spend a lot on footpaths? As Greg said, thankfully we get more funding now through NZTA for footpaths, so the funding model has changed a bit. I do a lot of walking around, particularly leafleting at this time of the year, so I don't find them too bad, but then I guess I'm sort of a bit younger. So, yeah, it's a hard one.
All right, thank you. Jill, we'll come to you first on this one. This is about earthquake strengthening. Earthquake strengthening is an issue for the High Street CBD. What do you think the council can do to preserve the town's retail sector?
Well, the ratepayers are not into subsidising people and businesses, so that's number one. I don't know much about this side of things, but I imagine if a building is earthquake prone by a certain date, I believe it's the 1st of July 2021, it will have to come down. So whether or not a building will replace that building that comes down, that's obviously a business decision from a developer. But I kind of have this feeling that if, in actual fact, people do not want to buy that land in order to create retail or service spaces in our CBD, then we could actually start creating small parks. And I kind of like the feeling of having a lot of small native reserves that it would be quite easy to maintain, and they would just add a little bit more nature into our urban environment.
Thank you, and Greg. Yeah. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, no, it's all good. I've talked about the CBD, but the biggest problem we've got at the moment with the CBD is building owners and developers can't see how they can get a return on spending money. So we're trying really hard to create an environment where they can. I was chair of Go Carterton up until a couple of weeks ago, and we were running a program called Invest Carterton, where we were working with the council officers, and we were visiting the businesses and the building owners, talking about how we can make things happen. Co-sharing is a good idea. You see what's happened with page 42 in Elmos. That's a co-sharing that's really prospering those businesses, and you've got the core over there as well with half a dozen businesses operating out of it. So we're exploring all opportunities, including residential up above buildings, but council can help, but we can't spend money.
And Greg, we'll stay with you first on this one and then go to Jill. What is your view on increasing user pay fees on such things like building consents and council facilities such as the swimming pool and the event centre?
Well, it's a way of reducing rates, is making things more user pays, but that will be part of the rate review where we ask that question. I mean, a lot of people have said to me in the summer the best thing they've seen is a kid walking down the road on the footpath with a towel wrapped under their arm heading to the swimming pool because it's free. We could charge for every bit of water you use, but I mean, all those questions are going to be asked at the rate review. Yeah. And
Jill?
My feeling is it's about the magnitude of that cost. I think when we actually made swimming pools free for users, I have a feeling that the previous year we only got $7,000 as admission, so really $7,000 is quite a low figure, and it was probably better to make it free. It was well used, etc. Recently we took off fees for library books, same story, not much in it, so in fact it was probably cheaper to get rid of the fees and just have free books. So the idea, of course, is we want our facilities used, such as the event centre used. So if we charge too much, then of course these facilities aren't used. So it's one of those situations you've just got to weigh up and look at each situation individually.
Jill, we'll start with you on this question. It's a question about relationships. Relationships within council are important. How do you build relationships, and who are the key ones?
Okay. Yes, it's all about relationships. Life is pretty much all about relationships. Business is certainly all about relationships. So the question is, how do I build relationships? Generally speaking, I hopefully will listen, understand someone's point of view. I will be truthful and honest in all angles of my discussion with people. And at the end of the day, I think the word compassion, if you can just have compassion, and Greg was using the word empathy, they're sort of very similar. That is that you've just got to have a situation whereby you get on and try and work well with everyone. If you don't, sit down, try and work it out and get some sort of resolution.
Thank you, and Greg.
Yeah, I touched on it before. It's leadership, basically. You lead by example and you create a cohesive team. So, yeah, honesty, integrity, being positive, commitment and passion, being a communicator. I won't go on, but you heard of it before. But it's just being a leader and creating that team and listening to everyone. And like Jill says, empathy is so important. If you don't have empathy, you don't have a good team.
I'm from Masterton, so I'm outside of the Karatan region, so I don't want to treat this in a light-hearted manner. It might be very dear to some people's hearts, but we can go to all three candidates on this. What is your preferred colour scheme for the clock tower, and why?
There you go, Graham.
This might be similar to the debates we have about flower beds in Masterton.
Yeah, I don't even live here, so I probably don't need to look at it, whatever it is. I'm a sort of a architect by training, so I'm probably more conservative. One of the more conservative ones would be my pick, but that's just my personal opinion. Yeah.
Like Graham, I'm a little bit conservative too, but I like option 2 as a more darker colour. I'm quite happy with the status quo, but I think in some ways it's nice to have a little bit of change, so I would be going for option 2.
I mentioned before about needing to create investment in the CBD. I mean, to be honest, I'm not a great fan of the rainbow, but I think a colour scheme is the way to go. You look what happened on the project on TV3. It created interest in Cardigan. The library square across the road there with the bright squares, most people didn't even know the library square was there. And now you notice there's photos appearing everywhere with that library square. So something that stands out and makes a difference can and create investment. Yeah.
Thank you. This next question sort of sets the scene a little bit first. It's got a title, The Environment and Recycling. I don't necessarily expect you to answer the first part of this, but there's some themes you might want to talk about. When can materials be recycled? E.g. all food, meat trays are number 1, yet now these won't be collected and residents have to put into the landfill. Previously, these were collected. Why have all 3 councils why don't you have them contribute to a steam cleaning plant, as that is the only reason given why they now won't be collected? This is shameful. So maybe not specifically address what can be recycled and when, but your thoughts around recycling.
I can answer that because I have rather a lot to do with waste. I think what the question's asking is that currently we're only recycling plastics 1 to 2, and we are not able to recycle 3 to 7. One of the reasons for that is we don't have the technology in New Zealand to do 3 to 7s. It all started happening when China closed its doors to probably most countries, didn't take any more recycling. So suddenly we had to stockpile a whole lot of plastics. So that's the reason that it's no longer...
I think the question is suggesting, I'm not sure if this is right, but that even though meat trays are 1, they're not currently being recycled?
I think there's something unusual about meat trays, but I don't have the answer to that right now.
Greg, would you like to speak generally about recycling or address that specifically?
I can't really add too much more to what Jill says, and all I can say is that as consumers we have the choice of what we buy, and if we all exercised our choice, the supermarkets and manufacturers would listen. But Jill covers that topic quite well.
I've got two questions that I'm coming straight to you, Jill. Thank you. The first one, Jill, as Mayor, how would you actually get central government to change regulations? Surely this is not possible and is a standalone dream for a small rural local council.
Yes, it very much might be. In 25th of August 2016, I actually went down to central government for the first time in my life to what is called a select committee. I had really no idea how it worked, but it was the Local Government and Environment Select Committee, and they were doing submissions on Amendment 2 of the Local Government Act 2002. All sounds a bit boring, but basically the idea was that it was an amendment that really stopped a lot of democracy. That's kind of feeling very much how it was. So I did a submission to that, as did a number of people all around New Zealand, and it is still stuck in the House. Nothing's happened yet. So with a whole lot of people behind us, we can actually do the stuff. So no, we probably can't do it as one little council in New Zealand, but if we got together with a whole lot of other councils, then I'm sure we could make a real change to central government.
This is another question for you, Jill. You have openly criticised council staff. If elected mayor, how are you going to have effective relationships with management?
I don't know when I have openly done it publicly. I've certainly not criticised council staff openly from my perspective. I guess the idea about management, if you feel they should be performing better or more ethically or whatever, then I guess you sit down with them and you sort it out and you find resolution.
Thank you. Greg, we'll come to you first on this one. This is quite a general question. What is the biggest challenge for Kāretin?
The biggest challenge is affordability. Central government keeps giving us stuff to do with no money to make it happen. They're doing it to the farmers and they're doing it to us. And we're a member of Local Government New Zealand, which is made up of all the councils in New Zealand, and we are working and we need to work harder with Local Government New Zealand to get that message out. We're one of the few countries left in the world that has a system where we basically get all our funding through rates. And that needs to change. And Local Government New Zealand is onto that one, and we'll be pushing that from our end as much as we can.
Jill, the question was, what is the biggest challenge facing Kāretin?
Yeah, I agree, it's funding because of the affordability, and yes, we do need to look at different funding mechanisms, but I'm also thinking, I'm working with the Climate Change Working Party, the regional one, and the other councils around the Greater Wellington area have massive problems with what they call coastal erosion. So we sort of think that we have things a little bit bad, but man, theirs is going to be pretty difficult as sea levels rise. We have river flooding, but I guess that doesn't affect as many homes and people as this coastal erosion problem does around the whole of Greater Wellington region.
And Graham, would you like to address that?
I actually want to make a comment about what both candidates here have said. It's interesting that Jill's interested in what they call localism, which is having smaller councils, but maybe an overall authority for Wairarapa. And I was reading the other day that I think France has got 37,000 councils, and the average size is maybe under 2,000 people, and they actually work quite well. They don't look to amalgamate them and stuff like that. And in terms of funding and stuff, what Greg was saying is bang on. I think the world average is 40 of tax take and rates take and everything is taken off you. 40% is normally spent locally and 60% nationally, and in New Zealand I think it's 90% nationally and 10% locally. So that's sort of the reason why your rates are too high. And exactly as Greg said, it's they're trying to make you do more and more, all sorts of legislations to improve your supposed life, but not fund it. So I think both of these guys got some, good ideas here. So.
Thank you. This is another question for Jill and Greg. Greg, we'll go to you first. What specific things will you do to encourage community engagement in council business and matters? So what specific things will you do to encourage community engagement in council business and matters?
Right. It looks like we're going to have a really onto it council. Some of the calibre of the councillors is outstanding. And during the hustings, we've been talking informally about ways of engagement and communicating. And I think you'll find there'll be a whole new avenue. Some of that's been done on while we've been campaigning. But I must say, Councillor Rebecca Verganst has made a huge impact over our last triennium about different ways of getting out and getting in and communicating. But we need to lead by example and be more approachable, and you'll find that we will be.
And Jill, what specific things will you do to encourage community engagement in council business or matters?
Yeah, less on those formal processes. The consultation for things like annual plans are very only a small number of people bother with doing that. So it's not really a thing that most people like. I would like a more proactive thing, and I think I mentioned before that Creative Forest was used out in the foyer back in August, and that was very much part of the Resilient Kātātan and Kāpai projects to look to see what people wanted in Kātātan. I think we could transform that kind of process into something that the community really wanted. So I must admit, from my perspective, from a canvassing and campaigning perspective, I believe that these actual meetings in the event centre have probably been the most populated and enjoyable. The couple of the even the farmers market for us, there's not that many people that you talk to. So yeah, it kind of depends. And I know there's a bit of social media stuff happening, but in actual fact, it's only a handful of people that do it. So it's really up to the people, I guess, as to what they want.
Thank you, Jill. And we'll stay with you. The question is, and then go to Greg on this one. What can be done to improve local employment opportunities? What can be done to improve local employment opportunities?
This is a tough one because I did used to employ people, and then I got a little bit tired and exhausted and stressed by the whole thing with all the new laws and regulations and things coming through. I'm currently working through volunteering Wairarapa, and what we're actually trying to do is to help people to gain employment. So I think that work experience is a really great thing for employers to give to people. And I certainly have just had my own children. I've got an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old, and always sort of tried to get them to do work experience first until they actually were capable of actually being, good at working and got their work ethic. Yeah.
And Greg, what can be done to improve local employment opportunities?
Well, we've got an expert standing for council. You want to elect Dale Williams, ex-mayor of Otahuanga. He got 0 youth unemployment in Otahuanga. And one thing I'm really keen on is after-school jobs. Every kid had an after-school job, but with health and safety now, people don't come in and sweep the floors and do those sorts of jobs. So we need to, as a community, we need to create those after-school jobs again. And work with the health and safety side of things and make it happen. Because quite often, we had it at our place, we had a young boy down the road came and swept the floor, and we gave him an apprenticeship for 3 years. So it's a foot and a way in. Yeah.
Thank you. This will be our last question from the floor before we ask you to give your concluding remarks. It's not so much a question as an opportunity to speak on a topic. Greg, we'll start with you. Can you talk about your views for the proposed sports hub, as well as the replacement swimming pool?
Sports hub. Out of Gladstone, we've got the Gladstone complex. It was built by the community, fundraised by the community, and it's run by the community, and it's self-sufficient. So if a sport hub to have ongoing, or basically to be ongoing, it needs to be driven by the community. It's not up for council to say we're going to build a sports hub, because otherwise council will fund a lot of it and also be running it. The community's got to drive it. What's the other one? Swimming pool.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one. Wairarapa's too small for every town to have a swimming pool. We've got Masterton's fantastic swimming pool. Maybe the day will come where we'll have one pool in the South Wairarapa. I mean, if we've got a cycle trail that links Kātātan and Greytown, maybe there could be a pool in Greytown and kids could cycle there. But we need to work together. I mean, you can build a pool, but operating it, that's where the expense is.
And Jill, your thoughts on the sports hub and the swimming pool?
Yes, so absolutely, council cannot fund any sports hub, but currently we're working with the rugby club, the Carterton Sports and Recreation Trust. That's been going now for, I think, 8 years, getting there very slowly. The rugby club is still in there. They put a hold on it for a wee while, and that would be to build facilities on Howard Booth Park with a lease from council. In terms of a swimming pool, I would say it's pretty unaffordable right now.
Thank you. Candidates will now have 1 minute to provide their final thoughts, and then that will be the end of this evening. So I'd like to invite Jill to give your final thoughts. Yep. 1 minute.
Okay. Well, I really hope with this election, no matter what candidates are elected, that we all work together for the benefit of our district, that we discuss our differences, that we listen with understanding, that we collaborate and we build partnerships, and that the way we live our lives is that we are kind to our people and also obviously to our planet. So I'd like to thank all mayoral and council candidates for standing, for your campaigning and passion, to your nominators, and of course the organisers of these public meetings, and of course to you guys, the audience who've come and attended them. Thank you.
Greg, can I ask you to share your final thoughts? Sure.
First of all, hey, thanks guys for coming out. It's really, really cool. We've had 3 big candidate meetings and each one of them has been really, really well attended. And as I've said before, the number of candidates standing shows that we have passion for our community. Yeah, I'm about a cohesive team. I would like to lead that. I believe the time is right after 2 terms on council. It's the right stage for me to do it. And I can offer you strong leadership, create a proactive and cohesive team with emphasis on portfolios, so every councillor has a portfolio. And I really, really want to energise our CBD redevelopment and getting the 3 Wairarapa councils working together. That's essential. Yep, so that's basically me. A vote for Greg Lang will ensure Carterton District will be as affordable as it can, as resilient as it can, and a place where enterprise and talent can thrive. Thank you very, very much.
And Graham, I would invite you to share any concluding remarks.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what the others have said. Thanks a lot for turning up. It's been Carterton. I mean, I'm unusual that I can see all the different things, and the further south you get, the better the numbers are, but the Carterton have had by far the biggest meetings. I'll be handing out a little bit of paper at the door if you want to have a look. It's just all the facts and figures about a tunnel. And also, my next step, you know, people wondering probably what are you going to do after this, is that I've been lucky to meet all the candidates and pretty much the whole lot in all 3 councils. So, and most ones that I've sort of talked to about have made a commitment to letting me do a presentation to their councils to try and get local support as the next step. And I'm hoping that if one of the fine candidates have you there would do the same thing, that'd be a terrific start for it all, yeah. So thanks a lot, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the candidates again. They've been sitting up here for a long time talking and answering questions, and they've done a really, really good job of covering a wide range of topics and coming across as really knowledgeable and, more important, really, really passionate about Carterton and local government. I would like to thank Resilient Carterton for making the evening possible, and all of the organisation as well as the District Council for providing the venue. The last group of people I'd like to thank is you for taking an interest in local government. When there was a bit of a joke about the Masterton Meet the Candidates meeting, as there were nearly as many people in the audience as there were candidates, although about 3,000 people did watch it on Facebook. But that's certainly not a problem which has occurred tonight. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've got some food for thought. The purpose of this meeting was to give you more information so you could make a more informed choice. And from what I've heard, it should have certainly done that. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.